as I could.
Hello, Dexter Morgan fans, and welcome to the Dexter New Blood Wrap-Up Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Reynolds, writer and producer of the Showtime original series, Dexter, and now the new Showtime special event series, Dexter New Blood. Man, today we've come full circle because we are here to discuss the absolutely, it's kind of an epic finale of Dexter New Blood. Dexter fans, I know you're probably still feeling all the feels right now and maybe even still processing what happened. I mean, we still are to a certain extent. But rest assured, we're going to talk it all through. Joining me now to break down the finale of New Blood is Clyde Phillips. He's the Dexter showrunner, executive producer of Dexter New Blood, and Dexter writers Marc Muszynski and Alexandra Franklin. Hey, man, so let's start with, Clyde, say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, that's Clyde. This is Marc.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, man, I had no choice. Alex.
Hi.
There we go. So now we know everybody's voices. Hey, wow, the finale. We did it.
We sure did.
Crazy. You guys did.
I rewatched it right before now, and I had to wipe my eyes before getting on this Zoom call because it's.
Me too. I watched it this morning. I had them send me the air copy. I had tears streaming down my face.
Yeah, it's a powerful landing, I think, of this show and of this whole Dexter journey. Speaking of journeys, I always like to start a little bit with like hearing how people became writers. Like people are very, very interested in this thing. Clyde, we sort of touched on yours in our podcast a little bit. Let's talk to Alex and Marc. Alex, tell me why you became a writer, how you became a writer, this whole crazy TV screenwriting thing. Let's go.
Yeah, the whole journey. I always loved writing, but I guess living in Los Angeles and like doing it as a living never really seemed like a tangible possibility. I lived in the middle of Pennsylvania and I went to Penn State and everybody did business and engineering and stuff that I guess matters in society. And so when I graduated college, I kind of was really clueless about what I wanted to do with my life. So I moved down to New Orleans for a little bit, and I became a counselor for kids who had to do service to graduate high school. The way that I kind of kept myself up at night was I was just writing a blog sort of documenting all the misadventures of a girl who didn't really know what she wanted to do with her life. And when I was down there, one of the campers found my blog. So I think she liked her portrayal in the blog, and she ended up sending it to her mother, who was an executive. Like she was the head of a major production company out here. And she was just like, Hey, I really like your writing. Would you want to come and intern for me for a while over like this fall? And Who was it, Alex? Who was the mother? Her name was Liza Chasen. She was the head of Working Title Films at the time. And so it was just sort of a windy, twisty road of assistanthood for about 10 years. And at some point I landed at Sony, which is where I met Marc, and our collaboration kind of started there, and we started writing a ton together. And then the first thing that we wrote together, we sold back to Sony, which was our matchmakers in the first place. So that's kind of my way in.
What a crazy, I didn't know about the New Orleans thing. That's goes to show you never know. You never know. Marc Muszynski.
Yeah,
writer.
Well, so
tell us. You and I have like connections, yeah?
Yeah. Well, and so I when I was growing up, my best friend's dad was a science fiction author. And so that made the idea of writing seem possible.
Sure.
But not necessarily like a day job per se.
Right, yeah.
Because even like one year he won a Hugo Award, and then we went to all the conventions, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. How much do you get paid for a short story? And they were like, $100, you know? And so, but I always loved writing, and that sort of broadened into theater, and I eventually was doing some sketch and improv performance in Chicago, and my favorite part of that was the writing and producing part. And then one day, one of my sort of like improv idols had to pawn his skateboard to make rent. So he showed up late, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I had only recently, at the age of like 24, nobody in Illinois informed me that like TV shows get written, but I had spent all my time watching them. And so I was like, oh my God, wait, I can be that part of this.
Yeah.
And so I hesitated for a bit because I'm also visually impaired, and LA does not have the public transit system that Chicago does.
That's right.
But at some point I was like, I'm not going to let my disability stop me from, chasing my dreams. And so I moved out to LA, and then quickly discovered that every entry-level job that I applied for required a driver's license.
Oh my, yeah, that's right.
Can
you go pick up this thing for me? Yeah.
Yeah, like writer's PA. At the time, even I think the page programs, the agency mail rooms, every job like that. And what I ended up, the one place that didn't ask for a driver's license up front was a part-time student internship at Sony. And near the end of my time there, the head of the department's assistant left. And I was like, oh my God, this is my chance. And so I went to the head of the department and I was like, hey, I feel like I've grown and learned a lot, and I would really love to be, to stay on here. And the guy was like, oh my God, that's so great. It's too bad we already hired someone. And that was Alex.
I know who it was.
Yeah.
This is your meet cute. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
I know. The story's so pleasant on my end. Like, it's just like, yeah, I did the assistant thing, and Marc has this whole hero's journey, and then I just squash his dreams at the very end of the story.
You took the visually impaired guy's job. There you go, Alex.
Yeah, I know.
No one's entitled to anything was the lesson I learned in that moment. But it ended up being so much more worth it because I met Alex, who is amazing and who I love working with. And somewhere along the line of us working together, I was put into contact with one Clyde Phillips. I think I had met him through a friend of mine, Alex Lewis, whose father, Robert Lewis, was a line producer. Yeah, and I think several other Clyde projects, right?
Yes, he did everything I did in LA.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're like brothers, just the two of them. Yeah.
And Robert and Alex are both like some of the nicest, most wonderful people. And so Clyde was looking for a writing assistant, and they put me in touch with him. And I remember talking to Clyde, and one of the first things he said was, that this is a challenging position. You're gonna have to work really hard, but he cares a lot about mentorship. And then he listed several examples of people that he had started as his writing assistants that had gone on to illustrious careers. One of the primary examples was a guy named Scott Reynolds.
Hey, that's me.
And I was like, well, I love that guy's work. If I can do any of the kind of stuff that these people are doing and learn from Clyde, then that would be amazing.
Yeah, Clyde's amazing. And he's sitting here. That's embarrassing, Clyde. Sorry. Yeah, and then full circle. Ended up, Clyde, you, when we started setting up the writer's room for this show, one of the first people you wanted to bring on was Marc. And then he said, I got this other friend, Alex. And it was Marc and Alex. It was a twofer.
That's how I met Alex, because I said, Marc, I'm going to give you a break. And he says, oh, I forgot to tell you I have a writing partner.
I think what really helps me in all those situations is that Alex is way more likable than me. So it's like, I know that all I'm really doing is giving someone an even better friend.
That's right. And you guys were such a huge part of this room and of this series and of this finale, Otherwise, Clyde wouldn't have had you guys co-write the story of this for this episode. He does not suffer fools lightly, do you, Clyde?
No, I don't. You're fired.
Clyde, this was a long journey. Let's discuss how it felt to bring Dexter's story to a close. You had strong ideas about this, even back then, and especially for this season.
Right. I'd always wanted Dexter to meet his demise because, first of all, what greater closure is there?
Right.
Second of all, what he does is reprehensible. It just happens to be completely entertaining because Michael Hall is so appealing And it's a serial killer show with a sense of humor, but he's a psychopath, and you don't get to kill people. And he needed to pay the societal price for it. We needed to have the ultimate closure. And we knew that all season long. It's just how we got there that was important. You know, there's the old saw about, for any man, whether you're a completely normal person or a fucked up person, that you need to kill your father in order to move on in life. Right. And I had, as you Scott know, had a terrible childhood and a terrible father whom I've killed many times in my novels and in screenplays and teleplays and therapy. So it was natural to do. As I've said to you before, I wrote the script with a pen filled with blood. It's why it's very moving. It's very emotional. I was just an hour ago wiping tears away watching the show again.
Yeah, I was watching it with my wife and Rob, and watching with them, and they had never seen it. I felt the emotion sort of rolling off of them onto me. Like I was able to watch it as someone who just wants to see what happens to Dexter, you know, and to see what happens to Harrison and Angela and all these characters that we've grown to love over the course of the season.
There's so many factors that go into this behind the scenes. I mean, you know, a great writing room, great collaboration, great contributions of Alex and a little bit by Marc. But, you know, people don't know that, you know, this is a very difficult scene, and Jack is a young actor. And we were chasing snow everywhere we went because we shot completely out of order. But we had a little behind-the-scenes conversation about, you know what, this is going to be a really hard scene for Jack. Let's do an interior scene in the middle of a snowstorm in the therapist's office, which you wrote, so that we can get Jack's chops going, Jack Alcott's chops going, and his relationship with Michael C. Hall going. And then one weekend, we all went into the offices in Massachusetts, cleared out the bullpen where all the assistants were because of COVID. You couldn't be close to each other. For some reason, I had a baseball bat in my office, and we gave that to Jack. And Marcos came in, Marcos Siega, and we gave that to Jack to use as a rifle, and they rehearsed the scene in the bullpen. And we talked about it. Michael had some ideas. We changed some things up. I rewrote some things. And even on the day of the shoot, Michael would have a question, Jack would have a question. I changed things for them. And then I'll never forget, at the end of one take in which both of them are active, Michael yelled out across the snowy meadow, "Thanks for the good words, Clyde." I mean, what better compliment is that in front of a whole crew, in front of the cast?
Yeah. It was a powerful moment. Everybody could feel it. The whole cast, the whole crew, everybody sort of treated it.
It was sacred.
I don't know, almost sacred or something, like, because we were all a part of something that's by the way, had to keep secret for the next 8 months. Everybody treated this with the respect that it needed to have. Marc, Alex, talk about just being thrust in the middle of it all. What was it like to be part of Dexter New Blood? Not only sort of like kind of a writing team, but kind of not, but joining up with this new team, contributing to an episode that is, I mean, what a way to start.
Yeah.
Your first episode is the finale, and you write it with Clyde Phillips. Give me a break.
Yeah, I think I was like covered in CBD oil for the entire time that we were in the room, because I just couldn't believe that I was a part of something so iconic and so epic. And I remember the day that you announced what episodes we were going to write. And, we had the honor of being told that we were going to be writing the finale with, the man, the myth, the legend, Clyde Phillips. And I think I just went back into my office and cried. I was like, I can't believe I'm a part of this. So yeah, if I wasn't leaking sweat, I was leaking tears. It was very overwhelming, but also just the greatest, most single best honor of my life.
I mean, it was funny because I had been working with Clyde previously. So
that's right.
I had seen firsthand how good he is at almost every aspect of this business. And then it was funny for me, and I had tried to explain to Alex that what she was about to encounter, but then I got to live it anew. And I think one of the things that was really cool to see is already knowing how like that Clyde is a genius. Then seeing him bring aboard this group of people, and every single idea as it went up and through the works just got better. As it went through the writing process, it got better. As it went through production, it got better. As it went through editing, like seeing it all now on air, watching these things that, you know, Clyde and the other writers would have brought to the table, you know, almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Seeing them just flourish in this way, I don't know. It just showed me so much that, like, both as a creative, you know, visionary himself, but also as a leader of this group, when both of those skills work together, damn.
It really felt like we were in incredibly safe hands with you, Clyde, and you, Scott. You had such an understanding of who this character is and what this world was going to be, that having you guide us just made the experience so special. And we knew it was going to be great. And then we saw it, and it even blew our expectations out of the water.
But it's scary. Let's all be honest. Like, it's scary trying to land the plane like this. Yeah. Especially something that's so beloved. But I think it worked out really well, because what we watched was, at the top of this episode, you have Dexter walking around his burnt down cabin, which is dredging up a lot of stuff for you too, Clyde, you know? And then...
what Scott's referring to is I had a house burned down. So it was pretty triggering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was I remember when you pitched in the room, you're like, oh, great. Thanks, guys. But so you have Dexter at the top of this episode, sort of on top of the world, right? Anybody else would just be like bereft and going, what am I going to do? Dexter's like, I love this place. These were good people. I've got my son. He knows who I am. He adores me. He's just like me, which is, you know, what Dexter wants. Really, he finally was able to admit it, and he's got this plan. We're going to do
this together.
Yep, we're going to go off. We're going to move to Los Angeles, and we're going to work out the code together. Batman and Robin.
Yeah, it was awesome seeing that play out the way that it did, because oh my God, Michael C. Hall is such a genius. You even notice like a slight tonal change in his acting once he realized that this was what his life was going to be. Like him kind of wearing proudly the suit of a serial killer that can share his life with somebody. It was so nuanced, but I was just, oh my God, it was so gripping to watch.
And even Marcos was so smart in the way that he shot that. Suddenly, this was Dexter Morgan walking around Iron Lake. Like that sort of slow motion that we used to do back in the day when Dexter would walk into the police station and take everything in. He's the lord of this domain, right? And then things unravel a bit.
Well, in watching it, you know, and in writing it, I wanted to parallel the first episode of the season, which I wrote, with this episode. And reintroducing all the characters who are there to help clean up his burned down cabin as we introduced them in the first episode. Opening with a voiceover, although is Molly Park's voiceover, and closing with a voiceover, which is Dexter's voiceover.
Both posthumously.
His running through the woods in the first episode and in the last episode to the scene where the deer was shot.
Very different runs, by the way, but they look the same. Yeah. And then, little does he know, like Dexter's on top of the world. He's going to go move. Everything's going to be great. And then Angela finds that second screw. And that screw was the one that Kurt gave him a while back, and he stuck it in his desk.
Through Elric. Right.
Yeah, through Elric. Elric gave it to Harrison, right? That's right. So that was just like, you know, he would never have thought that would have come back. It was just sitting in his desk, and dang
it. Well,
it.
in the last moment of the previous episode of yours, Angela got all the other screws in the metal plate from Matt's surgery, and this was the final screw in the coffin, as it were. And she was able to match them up because they have serial numbers, and indeed they were from Matt.
Yep. So it all starts to fall apart. So let's talk about Angela's making the decision to arrest Dexter. You want to talk about putting that scene together, Clyde? Because it's a very moving, threatening. I mean, I remember even that moment when Dexter puts his hands on his head, and then you see the reflection, which you're so good at with those visuals. The reflection in the toaster. Everything's all warped and weird. And there's like that brief moment where he might reach for the knife. Amy, sitting next to me, my wife, was just like, just completely taken. You want to talk about putting that scene together, writing that thing, the process behind it, how you guys did that?
Interestingly, Julia was the engine for that scene. You know, if you remember, she's got her suspicions about Dexter already. She's been researching him in the previous episode. She finds that screw. She has the other screws. She does the research. And there's just one moment. It's a very simple moment of Angela in her car, in her own driveway, looking in on Dexter and Harrison and Audrey. And Marcos just has the camera just directly on her face. And we see her face change. And she basically says an internal, fuck me, I got to do this. And she, without the camera moving, her face drops and she gets out of the car and comes into the house and has to get the kids out of the house.
Yeah.
And she does that by sending them off to the market, and we have some fun with that. And then Michael is making jokes, trying to make everything okay. He said, would you like some wine? I'm sorry to say it's a little smoky. And then
it's so good.
And then she's not reacting to anything. And he's trying everything. And then he finally goes to hug her, and she can't take it. And she pushes him away forcefully, and very forcefully, and pulls out her gun, pulls back the slider on her Glock, pulls back the action on her Glock. And Dexter's still trying to make light of it. She's saying, on your knees, turn around. And he said, whoa, you're taking this whole mistress role-playing thing a little far. And still wanted to just keep the impetus, oddly enough, because Dexter's got a lot to do in this show, keep it on Julia, because no matter what we're doing, we're inside Dexter all the time.
Yes.
And she was the propulsion that kept this thing going and kept it real. And we start to think, holy shit, Dexter's in trouble. And he gets in more and more and more and more and more trouble as the show goes on, to the point where he has to, out of desperation, get himself out of there.
It's a wonderfully tense sort of moment. And like, it's interesting, like when he says you're taking role playing to a whole nother level, like part of me is like, I think maybe he believed it a little bit, you know, like I don't think he could fathom that everything has gone so badly, because he's missed all of these sort of cues from her, which he normally can't. Normally human cues aren't his forte. You know what I mean? But he sort of missed all these things because he is in just pure bliss because of his son, you know, from last episode to this episode. He's got a plan. It's going to work out.
And also, we had, if you remember, we initially had, when Angela's got the gun on him, and he's looking at the toaster, and he's reaching out with his left hand to the knives and all of this business, which I know was you texting from the other room to Marcos. We initially had her click her police radio to let Logan know to come in. And then in the third edit, we took that out just to show how fucked Dexter is, that this is so well planned by Angela, by Julia, that all the timing is right, and she really put this together, and Dexter's not getting away.
Yep.
I love it.
These two people that are in control. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the few, if only, times that we see another character ahead of Dexter, and it's really tense. So your decision to take that out, I thought it was genius. Julia
is ahead of Dexter for almost the whole show until he outsmarts her 3/4 of the way through. She's one step ahead of him the whole way. She's armed with information that he doesn't know she has. And he's trying to sweet talk her by talking about Vincent Van Gogh and taking this sex thing to a whole other level. And come on, Angela, you're better than this. Because I didn't do it, he kept saying. And she knows better. And you're right, Alex, we never get to see that.
What a good cop that Angela was. I guess what I really love about her journey too, Angela's journey, is like, you know, a lot of cop shows is like, I'm going to get to the truth, right? I'm going to get to the truth. But this is so personal for her because,
it's so
you know, it was a hard journey for her to become chief of police of this small town. And then suddenly, to suddenly find out that your boyfriend might be the Bay Harbor butcher. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow.
this is after losing Kurt. She had arrested Kurt, the mayor of the town, basically, quite publicly, and was quite publicly humiliated when he got off.
She doubled down. It's wild just watching his life unravel. And yet, even during that really tense, I mean, how tense is that interrogation? There's 2 interrogations in this thing. 2 people just sitting in a room, which, some directors might think that's deadly. But Marcos and Hillary and the script and the actors just made this thing just hum. Want to talk about the interrogation a little bit?
We had a great outline. I mean, as you know, you all know I'm a motherfucker about outlines, and Alex and Marc really helped me with the outline, and I had a great structure to work off of. There's 2 big interrogations in there, and it probably took me a day and a half to write them because I was so well prepared. I knew what I wanted. I had a great outline from Marc and Alex, and I lived those scenes for a couple of days before I sat down and wrote them, when you're doing this long enough, and you tell yourself that, okay, I'm having trouble here, or this is going to be difficult, but I'm going to do it. And I felt confident that I was going to get through it. And once I started writing it, it just came out. And the nuance and Dexter's attempt at jokes and Dexter's desperation and Dexter's understanding, you just look at the subtlety of Michael C. Hall's face when she hits him each time with a new piece of incriminating evidence. And if you start at the beginning and go to the end, you can see his face drop. However, because he's doing it in increments, it's just a beautiful descent until he ends up where he is.
He was able to bob and weave and offer alternate theories and be the Dexter that we all love. But that moment when Angela drops the hammer about Batista, that's the first time you really see Dexter just oh shit, I am in bad trouble here. This is my carefully constructed life that I am the Lord and King over can fall apart at any second now. And then he makes that decision of okay, I can win her over.
Turn off the camera. And she said, why would I do that? And he just stares her down the way he stared down Matt in the first episode.
That's right.
Till she finally turns off the camera, and really his mission is to get her out of the police station so that, the fewer cops that are in there, the greater chance he has of making his escape. He turns to her and says, your life's work, this missing persons board, I can solve for you. But you need to go to Kurt's. And she goes, damn it. And then she goes there, and that's an astonishing scene that Marc shot.
And then Dexter looks to camera at us.
Yes.
His head is down, and he slowly looks up, and he looks right at us. And it's
I got this.
He's like, you made me do this.
And then Angela at the tomb is just terrific. It was some of her best work, I think, in the season of great work. She's so horrified, so sad, so broken, so determined. But what Dexter has done is he's now alone in the police station with just one cop. He only has to get past one person.
But he had to have that conversation with Deb, remember? Because there's a little part of his soul that was hoping, you know what, Deb came around and she saw that I was kind of the good guy here. And Deb is just she don't love you like I loved you, man.
Yeah, I'm your sister. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so, that's when Dexter just knows, this isn't the right thing to think. There's no way that she's going to look at that and she's going to take down Kurt and me. That's it.
It's really kind of 2 movies at once. And the second half of the movie, starts when he grabs Logan's water bottle. Yeah. And you're on a whole other ride. You've gone through all of this investigative stuff, and Dexter's in trouble. Then he takes control by grabbing that water bottle and asserting himself and brings himself to his own demise.
That shot of Deb with it framed by the little window in the cell.
Yes.
Her silhouette is just beautiful.
in the shadow, and then she's not there. Like that was
Yes.
that was Marcos like really saying,
It was Hillary and Marcos.
yeah, it's so in his head, so good.
The end of season 4, when Dexter comes home and he's looking at the moon and he's saying, I wonder if Rita is seeing the same moon in Jamaica that I'm seeing right now. We reprise that in this episode when he's looking out the window, looking at the moon, and then we cut outside to Angela lying on the police car, and we special effected the moon onto the front window of her police car, and they're looking at the same moon, and she goes, motherfuck, and she gets off of that thing, and she bursts into the police station and calls Batista.
And everybody cheered when Batista showed up again.
Yeah.
Across America, I bet.
I also hope everyone's happy that Batista's happy. Like, it makes me feel good, at least of a fan of the show. I was just like, oh, he married. He has kids now. He's good. That's good.
Yeah, I love that Batista's response is, I hope I didn't give you the wrong ideas. I'm a happily married man.
Yeah. Sitting alone in his Barca lounger, watching the news and falling asleep.
That's being married, Clyde. You know that.
That's right.
Yeah, Logan, so good this whole season, being the sort of, he's the third surrogate father figure for Harrison. This coach. I mean, coaches were a very important part of your life, huh, Clyde?
Sure. I played a lot of sports my whole life, and often my coaches were also teachers and were influential in pushing me forward from junior high to Boston Latin School to college to graduate school. I mean, they played a big part of my life. They were my surrogate fathers because I had no father.
Yep. So, Harrison sort of leaned into that relationship with Logan because Logan was a genuinely good guy,
Yeah, arguably the only one who genuinely cared about him, actually.
Yeah.
That's true. Who was genuine about it. Although Kurt was a coach, too. He coached the wrestling team and was an athlete. Led the Valley League in hitting in senior year.
I'll talk about being on set, Clyde, on that scene when Dexter kills Logan. Because that was a big discussion in the room of like, oh, man, wow. Is this a lot? Is this too much?
Yeah.
Is this good? Is this,
Well, Michael was just great about it. I mean, he was so intense, saying, stop struggling. I don't want to hurt you. This is inevitable. I've got you in a position that you can't get out of. One of the struggles that we had was that in some of the early edits, it looked like Logan shot his gun and then Dexter broke his neck because he shot the gun. But as written, and where we finally got, actually with sound effects, was that as written, Logan shoots the gun and Dexter, in ducking away, breaks Logan's neck by accident. Yeah. But it looked like Dexter was doing it in response to that. And then we tried everything in the world visually. And then I said, how about if you put the sound effect right where the gunshot is? The sound effect of the neck breaking. And suddenly, or maybe it was Perry's idea, or Katie's idea, I don't remember. Katie Ennis, the editor. But it worked. And it absolved Dexter in a way. It was an accident. Yeah.
I like his response, just like, man, I didn't want to do that. Like you dropped milk. Oh, man. I've gotten more upset at like dropping a gallon of milk than Dexter did at that moment. Shit.
Both of you were so smart in the construction of really this whole season, because in this relationship with Harrison, we start to humanize Dexter, but then at his core, something you were both so vigilant about throughout this process is like he's a sociopath. And, at the end of the day, if this is the only way for him to survive, this is what he'll do.
Well, that's an interesting point. When Harrison has the gun pointed at Dexter, and again, that's Chekhov's gun. It's classic. And he says, take off the safety just the way I showed you, shoot me here. And then as Harrison is girding his own loins to get this going, Dexter's voiceover comes up and says, I've never felt love before, but now I do. And it's for my own son and for what he's about to do. And then Harrison pulls the trigger. And Dexter says, "You did good." He forgives him. And then Deb is there. And she had the idea of pulling away from Dexter and Jennifer Carpenter, which was really powerful. And then another thing that we talked about a lot with Marcos and you was, okay, we're going to kill an iconic figure. And how does he die? What does it look like? What position is his body in? It's so tempting to have him splayed out on the ice like Christ, or to have him like this with blood coming down and he's an angel with wings. And then Michael had the idea of awkwardly stumbling backward and kind of crossing one knee over one thigh, or whatever the ultimate thing was. And it just looked like that he had been separated from how his body works and just collapsed. And because again, we shot a lot of shit with him lying on the ground dead. And so we had
finally
to get
got to see what it was like to lay down during an entire scene. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Going back to that I've never truly felt love before line. I remember that like moved us when you guys when you came up with that in the room, Clyde. That whole idea, and it's interesting because it's like what Dexter's saying there is it could be taken lots of different ways, which is quite wonderful, I think. But that Dexter true love is sacrificial.
Well, it's also the last line of the script. You're right. First of all, it is a culmination of a very difficult journey for Dexter. I think Dexter would have chosen to be anybody else other than who he was if he had a choice. Yeah. And the last line of the letter that he's reading, of the voiceover, is, "Let me die so that my son can live." Yep. That is the biggest sacrifice there is.
Yep.
And
Dexter's never been able to do that before, ever.
No, you're right. You're right. And just, whatever writing seminar this is, I could not have written that if I were not a father. We change as writers as we experience more and more life. I wrote plenty of husband and wife scenes before I was married that had nothing to do with what we're doing now.
Clyde, you and I had very different sort of visions of what you did good. And that's what sort of why you are such a good sort of showrunner, that you can allow many thoughts to exist within a thought, which is great writing and great storytelling and all that sort of stuff. But like for me, you did good. There's a part of that's a sort of like, my son is following the code in the right way. Mm-hmm. And it can mean both of these things. Yeah.
And you did the right thing.
Yeah.
You were faced with an impossible choice and you made the right choice.
Yeah.
And you are absolved. You did the right thing. You had my permission. I urged you to do it. You were in an impossible position. Dexter says it's the only way out, and Harrison says, for both of us.
Yeah.
My favorite line in that sequence, when Dexter says, "I can be a better father with your help," and Harrison says, "I'm not your fucking caretaker." That gets me every time.
Yeah, it's breaking down Dexter's like pure selfish way of looking at the world. Getting him to that point where he's able to say, "I've never felt true love until this moment," being sacrificial, giving up something, because Dexter just was incapable. Even with Deb, he was like, no, kill everybody else, but let us do our thing. There was no sacrifice even with Deb. The final letter, like, because we were sort of struggling. It's like, wow, how do you end a show without hearing Dexter?
Yes.
That was just a great pitch in the room. Was it Marc, Alex? Was it you guys? I forget.
It was Marc. I think we were struggling about how we could still hear him. And I remember, because it was before we got on with the room, and Marc's like, "Don't we still have the letter?" And I was like, "Oh my God, you have to say that. That would be such a great way to end the show." I'm Marc's hype woman.
If anybody needs a speech or a letter or an emotional sort of thing written for them, you're the go-to guy. So, Clyde, talk about writing that letter. This farewell.
Marc and Alex contributed to that letter, first of all, and then once I had that, then I knew the beats of what I wanted to have, what I wanted him to be narrating. Once again, it's a reprise of going through town, seeing all the characters again, seeing the town, going by his high school where he was actually happy, going by the diner where he worked, going by everything that was normal. That's another line that I love in the rifle scene, which is, I forgot what it was. I don't want to
be right. I just want to be normal.
Yeah, I don't want to be right. That's exactly it. I just want to be normal. He was so hungry for normalcy, and then it's taken from him. And originally, what people don't know is we were originally, and in fact, got pretty far down the line, where as he's driving out of town, a deer appears on the side of the road and is running with him and runs past the highway sign leading him to the on-ramp. And then we figured, well, it's too much. We don't need it. And also with Showtime's influence. It's too much. We don't need it. Let's just keep this let's simplify this journey and make it as focused as possible. And I'm so glad that we did that.
Yeah, no, it's an emotional drive, an emotional letter. And then Harrison drives off. There's even almost, there's a lot of emotion as he's driving through and seeing all these places and thinking through his father's final message to him. And then with that beautiful song, I mean, there's two great songs.
Oh, the National, yeah.
Yeah, the National at the end just really, I think that was like a Marcos wanted that from the very beginning.
Yeah, I had tried a couple of other songs, Alexi Murdoch and Charlie Musselwhite and a bunch of different things, and Marcos was absolutely right with that song.
Yeah, it fits that voice, the lyric, everything. It touches on it without informing it. Like it's really just a beautiful sequence. And then there's just like a slight bit of hope at that end as we are on Harrison and we cut to black. Like there's something else out there. He's got a pretty good truck. He's got $30,000 from Kurt sitting in a yellow envelope and some money from Angela. He's gonna have a lot to deal with.
And there was another great song. There was another great song in there too when Dexter got arrested and they're walking him outside.
The Radiohead song, yeah.
The Radiohead song, yeah. The music this year has been terrific, and I honor the memory of Dan Licht, and am so honored to be working with Pat Irwin on this show. We really killed it in the music department.
Yeah. And Michael Hill, I mean, we made a conscious decision from the very beginning that we were going to add lots of needle drops, lots of songs. So, hey, man, so what was your, Marc and Alex, seeing this happen? What was your favorite moment from the finale that felt sort of satisfying to you, that went from like that outline to a script to seeing it on screen? Were there things that just really grabbed you?
I mean, there were so many things. I guess it's hard because this is the last one. So much of that ending and so many of the little moments like, hearing that letter and watching him drive out, and you see just the way Angela puts the cash in Harrison's hands at the end and like it hugs him, and he's like, say goodbye to Audrey, and she can't. And then that whole lead up to the end, and then you see all of the sort of cavalcade of stuff coming into the town as he passes, and you're like, oh man, like just seeing it's such a visceral feeling of him leaving not just that town, but like the world of the show behind.
Yeah, that line of say goodbye to Audrey, I can't because I haven't seen you. I wrote a month after we turned in the script. It just occurred to me in the middle of the night, and I was able to, those little pieces of paper I would show up with in the mornings. And so I had one of that. And the script was written and approved and everything. And then that line came. It's just what happens. It's just the process.
Yeah.
But I think it's Alex's.
No, I love that line.
Response to.
So much so because, that in that moment, Angela's showing her humanity and giving Harrison a second shot. And like you were saying, Scott, you have that element of hope. Like maybe Harrison's going to be okay. Like life will go on for him. I think the parts that really, really gripped me were the two interrogation scenes. I mean, the two of them acted the hell out of it. But finally watching it, logically, I obviously knew, but I felt, oh my God, the whole being of Dexter is collapsing in on itself, and there really is no way out for him. And sort of watching that as a viewer and as a fan was, oh my God, it like took my breath away. I had my blanket over my head. I couldn't look directly at
My
it.
wife had her sweater. Yes, my wife had her sweater with her face. She couldn't watch.
Yeah, I mean,
She's watching through the holes in the sweater.
Jane and I are the same in that way. And to feel what it must have, what the audience hopefully feels was so thrilling. And devastating at the same time because you knew it would have to end tragically.
I just keep quoting Chekhov, which is that the ending was, I think, surprising and I think inevitable. And if you play the show, the season backwards, everything makes sense. It's like The Usual Suspects. You get all these surprises at the end and you play it backward and it's all there.
Yep. Yeah, it's the season where Dexter learns that he's the villain.
Yes.
And in some ways, the viewers too.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it was all guiding us toward that realization for himself. That moment. I mean, I felt like we had something special when Harrison did that callback from the very first episode and said, "Open your eyes and look at what you've done."
Right. Very first episode of the pilot of the very first season. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, killing the pedophile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. We made it. Clyde, there's a lot of fans out there. Do you have like a message for them at the end of all of this? Like what you want to say to all these people that have followed this journey?
I know that it's interesting. I was just giving an LA Times interview a little while ago, and the reporter was saying, I've been waking up for 9 years now on Sunday mornings thinking, what am I doing today? Soccer with my kids, lunch with my family, watch a little football, and watch Dexter. And I'm so humbled by that. I'm humbled by when the show was announced, this new season was announced, that all of the traffic on the internet, not all of it, a lot of the traffic on the internet was about, this has been such a shitty year with COVID and pick your politics. And finally, I have something to look forward to. And to be humbled by getting to do something for a living that I absolutely love to do is the greatest feeling in the world. And I offer to anybody out there, whether it's writing or teaching or doctoring or bricklaying or whatever it is, to find something you love to do so that you're happy every morning going to work.
Except serial killing.
Yeah, right. If you've learned one thing, maybe don't follow the steps of Kurt and Dexter. Well, hey, thank you so much, Clyde, Marc, and Alex, for joining me to break down the Dexter New Blood finale. You guys knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. It was beautiful and inevitable, like you say, Clyde. Thank you for sharing such great insight into this episode, into this ending. You guys are great. And that's a wrap. To all the Dexter fans, we appreciate your passion for Dexter and how you've embraced this chapter of the series, welcome new characters, and of course, some familiar. Hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes as much as we enjoyed making them for you. Thank you for watching, listening, and joining us on this journey every single week. I want to give a special thank you to all the guests who have come on the podcast to talk about their experiences, both being on and in making the series, and the teams from Showtime and Malcolm Media who helped put it all together. And if you're missing Dexter, there's no better time to go back and rewatch the series now that you have all the behind-the-scenes scoop. All episodes of Dexter New Blood are now streaming only on Showtime. And if you want to check out another great dark drama, I highly recommend Yellow Jackets. It's part survival epic, part horror, and a lot of great 90s music. You should check it out. It's also streaming only on Showtime.